Thank you for joining us here today for our summer tuition benefit series. Today's workshop will be on tuition benefit guidelines. So today we're going to go over the guiding document that governs the tuition benefit program bit by bit, kind of unpacking each separate section. And then at the end, we will have time for questions. So what we'll cover today are these basic sections: categories of support students, student registration, financial support, service requirements, residency and meritorious status, terms of eligibility and restrictions, administration of the program, petitions for exception to tuition benefit policy, and we'll touch a bit on extended tuition benefit. So jumping right into the categories of supported students, tuition benefit participants can be supported in 4 ways, 2 of which are research, 2 of which are teaching, and 1 of which is graduate fellow. First, we have the RA, which is job code 9314. This is exempt. Payroll comes off a grant. If a student has payroll coming off of faculty startup, donor funds, or other institutional funds, that would be a different job code. This is strictly payroll coming off a project. And the duties, of course, are supporting the mission, the research mission of the university. The GR, which is 9330, is the exact same job as the RA. The only thing different here is where's the funding coming from? This would be coming from an activity. And because of the nature of a lot of tuition benefit jobs, a student might be on institutional funds and project payroll during the same semester. So they might be 60% RA, 40% GR. It's perfectly normal, happens every semester. This should also be used for students who are in a professional education classification. And this is where students have an on-campus job completing a practicum or a similar sort of hands-on educational experience. A good example of this is education students working in housing, social work students working in the University Counseling Center, or similar. This is not to be students who are performing professional office functions, such as being the receptionist in the department office or whatnot. But this does need to be a professional education role tied directly to their job training. And then we have the teaching assistant, 9416. This generally comes from state funds, 1001 accounts, but this can come from other activities, such as donor funds or reimbursed overhead. This supports department or classroom education, including direct instruction. Student can be the instructor of record. They could be assisting another professor in the classroom. This can be instructional design. This can be grading. This can be managing a Canvas course community. It can be various different dimensions supporting the education mission of the university. Wages cannot be decreased mid-semester based on final student enrollments. So this is pretty important here. If a student starts their TA job in the middle of this, or at the beginning of the semester, and then enrollment declines in the middle of the semester, you should have a contract in place that protects the students' wages to be consistent throughout the entire semester. And finally, we have the GT, which is another graduate teaching assistant, job code 9417. This is for students who are international and they are coming in. This is their first semester on the tuition benefit program as a TA. In this, they will go through the ITAP program, International Teaching Assistant Program, where they'll learn about, the American classroom, different mannerisms, what is culturally acceptable and appropriate in American education. And then once they have passed this program, they will then be allowed to be classified as a TA. So it's just ensuring that students meet a certain level of proficiencies in English language instruction, etc. And while they are a GT, so during that first semester, they generally work as a grader in a non-student facing position. Those of you who would have questions on this should reach out to the ITAP program manager, which is Diane Katsanas. Then we have graduate fellows. This is a scholarship. So to say, this is students not supported on payroll. If a student is a graduate fellow, they should not be on payroll, nor should they have any work obligations. This is not just University of Utah guidelines and policy, rather, this stems from IRS tax guidance. So no work obligations of the funders. This could be in a donor gift agreement. This could be dean's office fellowship requirement, department requirement of maintenance of a certain GPA or completion of certain degree milestones to maintain fellowship funding in succeeding semesters. And of course, that should be outlined and agreed upon with the student in the form of a fellowship offer that is accepted. And these awards are processed through scholarship administration. And similar to this, though, we have GFs who would be in a trainee situation. And this is specifically grant funding that lists students as trainees. They can't be on payroll, but they are paid in usually monthly stipends. And these are processed through accounts payable. And the department will place a placeholder for this monthly amount in scholarship administration, because grad fellows, whether regular or trainees, will be counted towards federal cost of attendance. So that's why on the traineeship side, there needs to be that placeholder in scholarship administration. This can require training commitments, working in a lab, meeting with your PI, and other similar obligations as are allowable by the funding agency. So this would be reviewing those grant documents, what is allowable, what is the procedure for payment and obligation of trainees. Students supported by assistantships, i.e. on the 4 job codes that we went over, should only be on these job codes when they are supported by tuition benefit. These are tuition benefit specific job classifications. Additionally, wages will only count towards tuition benefit minimum support when they are earned on the appropriate job code. And secondly, when they are earned during the appropriate pay period. So for example, fall support begins on August 16th, ends December 31st. So if you have a student who starts their RA job on August 1st, that's great. You can start the students early, not a problem, but we will not start counting those wages until August 16th. Students may be supported in more than one classification. So for example, you might have a student working in a lab on faculty startup, which would be an activity, they'd be a GR, but then grant funding becomes available in the middle of the semester. So that student would be a portion GR, they started on faculty startup, and then they transition to RA when the grant funding comes in. So their tuition benefit record will reflect a mix of both. Students working in a limited teaching assistantship, such as 10 hours a week, may also receive a graduate fellowship or work as an RA as well. It's also not uncommon to have students teach a class and still have a research lab obligation. So they might be 50% RA, 50% TA. Of course, we do recommend that departments really be conscientious about the support that you are providing for your student. Tuition benefit support is meant to be an enhancement of the degree experience, providing them additional training, rather than we don't want them to have too many competing commitments that will distract them from their studies and being successful in their master's or doctoral programs. Moving on to student registration requirements and tuition billing. Students participating in tuition benefit, which includes extended tuition benefit, whether traditional or extended, must be matriculated graduate students in good academic standing with the program and the university and enrolled in a minimum of 9 credits a semester. That's fall and spring. If you have a student who's studying during the summer, they must be enrolled in a minimum of 3 credits. The credits requirement, nothing will disperse, no benefits will be posted to a tuition bill until that enrollment requirement is satisfied. Tuition benefit will cover between 9 and 12 graduate credits. Anything above that, let's say you have a student who is enrolled in 13 credits, 13 graduate credits, the tuition benefit program will cover 12, and then that one additional will be the student's responsibility. Tuition benefit also does not cover undergraduate courses or repeated courses outside of those that are required, such as dissertation. Students have to take multiple semesters of dissertation, so they'll be taking 7970 or 7977 multiple times. That's allowable, but retaking a methodology class to refresh will not, that second time will not be covered by tuition benefit. Yes, as well as if you do have a student who is required by their committee to retake a class, that's important to note here as well, for a higher grade. That will be either the responsibility of the department or the student to cover that additional retake. Academic year limits. The tuition benefit program in the University of Utah defines an academic year as fall, spring, summer, rather than summer, spring, fall. If a student is supported on tuition benefit fall and spring, then with summer, so during the entire academic year, they can have up to 24 graduate credits covered by tuition benefit. If a student is supported on tuition benefit fall or spring, not both, then their academic year limit will be 12 graduate credits, whether that's that fall or spring plus summer or just that spring semester. So an example here, if your student is supported all 3 semesters, fall, spring, summer, they may choose to enroll 9 in the fall, 9 in the spring, and 6 during the summer. That would be a total of 24. Tuition benefit program does not provide enrollment accommodations except for those that are approved by the Center for Disability and Access. They are the designated individuals on this campus to adhere to ADA and other federal and state policies relating to providing access and inclusion for students with varying disabilities, which may include medical, may include mental health concerns, learning challenges that may be diagnosed. Students will want to meet with an advisor in the Center for Disability and Access. They may be required to provide physician or clinician documentation to validate their request for an enrollment accommodation. One that is granted, that will be communicated directly to my office. If a department says, well, my student has a CDA accommodation, we need that directly from CDA, and it should only be communicated to the parties that are providing the accommodation to provide privacy and confidentiality for the student. Withdrawn courses. In academia, we use withdraw and drop rather interchangeably, but here on our campus, at least, there is a distinct difference. Dropping a class is what happens during the add drop period. So really from now until the second Friday of the fall semester, as fall registration is currently open. So a withdraw is when a student removes from active enrollment after the add drop deadline. So tuition benefit does not cover withdrawn courses. However, the student will be responsible for withdrawn course fees. So if a student has an active enrollment of 9 credits or higher after the withdrawn course, let's say they're in 12 credits, withdraw from 3, they have 9 remaining, tuition benefit will continue to cover those 9 credits, and the student will be responsible for those 3 credits dropped. However, let's say that a student withdraws from credits and any active enrollment is below 9 credits, the student will be responsible for the entirety of their tuition bill. Tuition benefit will not cover any of those expenses. Okay, moving on to tuition billing. Tuition is assessed by the Office of Income Accounting or the bursar's office. Students are billed according to their residency status. So Utah residents will be billed as a resident with resident tuition, and non-resident domestic and international students will be billed as non-resident students. There is a myth on this campus that if student is on tuition benefit, they will be billed at the resident rate. That is not correct. So if you have students who are non-residents saying, I'm billed at the non-resident rate, that is correct. However, eligible domestic, non-resident, and international students who are supported by tuition benefit will have the benefit of a non-resident waiver applied to their tuition bill, in addition to the tuition benefit of resident tuition and mandatory fees. Dissertation credits for PhD students are billed at a reduced rate. So a PhD student enrolled in credits in the range of 7970 to 7989 will be billed at approximately 1/3 the regular rate after the 0-hour fee. Tuition is assessed by course. So if you do have a student who is taking, let's say, 6 credits of dissertation and 3 credits of coursework, the dissertation credits will be billed at the reduced rate. The regular coursework enrollment will be billed at the regular tuition, graduate tuition rate. So that is something to take into consideration as you advise your students on their enrollment, as well as budgeting your use of tuition benefit dollars. Tuition benefit covers up to 12 graduate credits or 6 during the summer, mandatory fees, and the non-resident waiver where applicable. Tuition benefit does not cover everything else. So differential tuition, fees outside of mandatory fees, undergraduate courses, repeated courses, graduate credits exceeding 12, non-credit or continuing education courses, withdrawn courses, audited courses, international student surcharge fees, materials fees, or any other program or course fee that the student may be assessed. We do have the 84 credit hour rule for students who are working as RAs. So this is students on the job classification where their payroll is coming off a project or a grant. Students supported on tuition benefit concurrent to working as an RA. So at the same time, when they have met or exceeded 84 cumulative graduate credits, will be responsible for the non-resident portion of their tuition. If the student does have tuition benefit eligibility, once they've reached 84 cumulative graduate credits, tuition benefit or extended tuition benefit will continue to cover resident tuition mandatory fees. It's just that the non-resident portion will no longer be covered. Affected students who have completed required coursework may enroll in just thesis credits, 7970 to 7989, 9 credits, no more, no less, no coursework, and the non-resident waiver will continue to be covered. That's the one exception. Departments choosing to cover the non-resident charges can do so through scholarship administration. Financial support requirements. Hopefully everyone has seen the emails, the web updates and such that we've provided over the past month and a half with the upcoming minimum support requirements. So we have listed here our fall or our summer requirements. So the semester that started this week, and then fall, spring, summer of the academic year 23-24. So starting in the fall, 100% tuition benefit minimum requirement will be $10,000 in a semester. So you see summer is a bit less than fall, spring. That is because this is prorated by pay period. There are 9 pay periods in the fall, 9 pay periods in the spring, 6 during the summer. Financial support consists of assistantship wages or fellowships, which includes traineeships, as long as they are processed as we've discussed already, and that the assistantships are on the correct job code in the correct time frame. Students can be on more than one assistantship, such as a limited RA and a limited TA. Students can be supported by a mix of assistantship and fellowship. So student support does not have to be one and nothing else. It can be a mix of things to help students get the best benefit of their experience in the department, as well as to have their tuition covered. Assistantship wages will only be counted when they are earned during the proper semester. So fall is August 16th through December 31st, that's 9 pay periods. Spring is January 1st through May 15th, 9 pay periods. And summer is May 16th through August 15th, 6 pay periods. This is the earning period, not the paycheck. So the final paycheck for spring will be paid on the next week, which is after the May 15th. So it's what is earned, not what is paid. Fellowships will only count when they are dispersed in scholarship administration in the proper semester. So even though right now you can work with scholarships and financial aid to process a fall 2022 fellowship, if you were to pay that fellowship during summer, it would not count for fall and vice versa. So you always want to make sure it is noted correctly. And that does help ensure that anything that may affect a student with their cost of attendance, their usage of federal loans, will not be negatively impacted unnecessarily. So keeps everything in tight for each semester. And stipends must be dispersed within the semester. So stipends are generally paid on the first of every month. So that data does feed into my system as well. Benefits are posted conditionally all throughout the semester in good faith according to the amount of anticipated support entered by the coordinator. So starting July, right after the 4th of July, we'll open the portal for fall entry. Coordinators will put in $10,000 support or $12,000 support for the fall semester. That tells us we will apply 100% tuition benefit onto the tuition bill. That's in good faith that based on what the coordinator has entered, the student will be supported either through assistantship wages or fellowship dollars up to that $10,000 or $12,000, whatever's entered in. After the final paycheck of the semester, benefits will be adjusted to their actual support. So the final paycheck for spring will be next week. So next week we'll be processing this final calculation. So let's say your student received $1,000 less in support that's required for 100% benefit. Then their tuition benefits for spring will be reduced from 100% to 75%, or down to 50%, or in some cases, unfortunately, removed completely. If a student did not receive the minimum required support, that will be reduced. We do provide a period of time for coordinators and dogs to provide documentation such as retroactively paying a student or processing last minute fellowship so that we can reinstate the tuition benefit. However, when benefits are reduced or removed, that does leave students with an outstanding bill, as well as a registration and transcript hold until that bill is approved. Okay, service requirements. No student should be required to work more than 20 hours a week with or 0.5 FTE for 100% tuition benefit. Our recommendation is this breakdown here: 20 hours a week for 100% benefit, 15 hours a week for 75% benefit, or 10 hours a week for 50% benefit. So this does correlate with our minimum support requirements. A student should not be working 20 hours a week for $5,000 in support. That we want students to be supported at the proper level for the amount of work that they are putting in. Students can have campus employment outside of their tuition benefit assistantship. However, their total University of Utah FTE cannot exceed 0.74 or 29 hours a week. Doing so will result in immediate loss of tuition benefit. FTE restrictions include University of Utah athletics, hospital and clinics. Anything that is under the University of Utah umbrella counts towards that FTE. Unless a student is holding a benefited position, specifically a benefited staff position, students with an FTE of 0.75 or higher in that ineligible for tuition benefit, they will not qualify for the 50% faculty staff tuition reduction. So it is important that if a student is employed outside of your program, that there is this understanding that more than 29 hours a week between all jobs can and will result in the loss of tuition benefit. And this should be reflected in assistantship contracts. Okay, residency and meritorious status. As approved by the university president and the Utah System of Higher Education's Board of Higher Education policy, non-resident students participating in tuition benefit program may benefit from a non-resident waiver. So this is not just a waiver program designed by the University of Utah, but this comes straight from our governing organization overseen by the legislature. Graduate tuition is proposed at the appropriate rate or posted at the appropriate rate, 50%, 75%, or 100% with a non-resident waiver where applicable. USHE, our governing organization, allows domestic non-resident graduate students receiving a tuition benefit to be eligible to apply for Utah residency upon the completion of 40 graduate credits at the University of Utah. A student's ability to establish residency will not affect their eligibility of tuition benefits. So we cannot force a student to apply for residency. And there are certain programs such as the JD program, the MD program, where your residency status on your first day is your residency status for the entirety of the program, where you are not able to apply for residency. That said, we do ask each department to comprehensively and aggressively take action to ensure that eligible students are aware that they can apply for residency and that they are encouraged on a regular basis, whether that's every semester or every year, that you provide them with the information about how to apply for residency. Residency is managed through the Office of Admissions, and more information can be found on their website, admissions.utah.edu/residency. And the required paperwork, the deadlines and such are all found there. And any questions that department or student may have about residency should be directed towards the Office of Admissions. Meritorious status. So the tuition benefit program is a merit program. Need is not taken into consideration and should not be taken into consideration when determining how you utilize your tuition benefit. Therefore, participating students must meet and maintain a meritorious status as defined by the president of the university, which is as follows. Admission to the University of Utah as a matriculated graduate student. Selection on the basis of merit determined by a written policy. This is going to be what's outlined for the most part in your graduate program handbook. Recommended by the department chair, and maintenance of status includes remaining in good academic standing in your graduate program. Some graduate programs have stricter requirements for academic standing, so this is largely governed by each program. Completion of required milestone exams and program requirements within program deadlines, and maintenance of a 3.0 cumulative GPA. That's the part that we automatically run on our side. So if a student is not meeting this cumulative GPA requirement, their tuition benefit will not post. But anything above that, such as not meeting department requirement for or deadline for a milestone, for example, or if you require in your graduate handbook a 3.25 cumulative GPA, that is the responsibility of the department to ensure that those participating in tuition benefit meet your meritorious status standards. Okay, terms of eligibility and restrictions of participation in the tuition benefit program. Students are limited in traditional tuition benefit eligibility based on the type of program they are in, master's or doctorate, and their educational background. What degrees have they earned already, both in and out of the University of Utah? So we have a couple different scenarios to go through here. Firstly here, students in a master's program who enter with a bachelor's degree are eligible for up to 2 years or 4 semesters of tuition benefit support. So no previously earned master's or doctorate, and they're going into a master's program. And I want to point out here that we're using the language up to 2 years, up to 4 semesters. These are not entitlements, but eligibility parameters. So if you have a student who they are receiving support for tuition benefits starting their 2nd year of a master's program, and they want to start another master's right after that to use the 2 additional remaining, that's not an entitlement that can be carried over. So it is up to the limit that we discuss here in these 4 scenarios. Second scenario, student is in a doctoral program. They're admitted to a doctoral program and entered with a bachelor's degree. They are eligible then for up to 5 years or 10 semesters of tuition benefit support. Again, no previously earned graduate degree. Students in a doctoral program who entered with a master's degree at the University of Utah, so they earned their master's here at the University of Utah, they are eligible for a total of up to 5 years or 10 semesters of tuition benefit support. Ideally, student will have used 4 semesters on their master's and 6 semesters on their PhD, but let's say they had no tuition benefit support for their master's, whatever that was in, and they're going into your PhD program, they would still have that up to 10 semesters of tuition benefit eligibility. Again, no previously earned doctorate, and the master's degree earned at the U is regardless of timing or discipline. In the last scenario, students in a doctoral program who entered with a master's degree from an external university are eligible for up to 4 years or 8 semesters of tuition benefit support. No previously earned doctorate, and the master's degree from an external institution is counted regardless of timing or discipline. And this does include students who earned a master's from the University of Utah. Traditional tuition benefit will only pay for the first graduate degree. So if you are admitting a student who has already earned a master's and you want them in your master's program, you can support them on extended tuition benefit. Previously earned master's and doctoral degrees are counted in this calculation regardless of the institution at which the degree was earned, the country of the institution, so foreign degrees earned are still taken into consideration, the discipline of the degree. So if a student got a degree in piano performance and now you want to admit them into your chemistry master's program, that master's in piano performance still counts. And the date of the degree conferment. So a student could have earned their master's 30 years ago, that still counts when calculating their tuition benefit eligibility for a master's program here today. When it comes to the country of the institution, I get a lot of questions on, well, you know, their master's degree back home is equivalent to a bachelor's degree here, so that shouldn't count. Well, that will all be determined by the Office of Admissions when they review the transcripts. So if you have a question about the student has a graduate diploma in XYZ, that would be a question that international admissions or graduate admissions can answer for you on how is that being coded here at the University of Utah. Is that being coded as a master's degree equivalent? Doctoral students who have served a minimum of 4 semesters as a teaching assistant, TA or GT, may be eligible for an additional up to 2 semesters of tuition benefit eligibility beyond the limits described. So let's say that you have a student in a PhD program, history PhD program, they have been a TA all along and they need a little extra support. The department can petition for it up to 2 additional semesters of tuition benefit eligibility based on their service as a TA. And this request would be made by either the DOGS or the coordinator. Students should not be requesting that directly of our office. It is the responsibility of the students and the department to maintain an accurate count of the semesters of tuition benefit support that a student has utilized and received. And coordinators can utilize their tuition benefit reports, which will state the limit and how many they've utilized on their given report. Summer tuition benefit, all classifications of support, TA, GT, GR, GF, and RA are eligible for summer tuition benefit. Years ago, it was restricted to just RAs. Now it's any tuition benefit supported student. Students must have been previously supported in the academic year, so fall and or spring of that academic year. Summer tuition benefit participation does not count towards the limitations that we discussed, up to 4, 8, or 10 semesters of tuition benefit eligibility. This is seen as an add-on for the student. If a student is supported on tuition benefit fall and spring, total for the academic year, 24 credits. If a student is supported for fall or spring, 12 credits, summer, and that 1 semester. So for example, a student supported on tuition benefit the entire academic year may choose to enroll in 9 credits in the fall, 9 in the spring, or 6 during the summer. Students must be enrolled in a minimum of 3 credits for the summer in order for tuition benefit to be applied. This 3 credit minimum is regardless of if the student has a tuition benefit coverage eligibility of less. So let's say that your student was in 12 credits in the fall, 11 in the spring, And so they only have 1 credit left that can be covered by tuition benefit during the summer. They still must be enrolled in 3 credits, and either the department or the student will be responsible for the remaining cost. And tuition benefit will cover as little as 0.5 graduate credit during the summer semester. Again, that 3 credit minimum total enrollment must be satisfied. In cases where tuition benefit does not cover all the charges, student is responsible. If departments or PIs are covering that remaining cost, that would be done through scholarship administration. As a reminder, summer tuition is all assessed at the resident rate. There is no non-resident tuition during the summer. So no concern about non-resident waivers during the summer term. Okay, the administration of the tuition benefit program. Tuition benefit is administered by the graduate school in partnership with participating colleges and departments. So not all colleges participate in the tuition benefit program, and not all programs in participating colleges or participating departments participate in tuition benefit. So this is a question to have internally about how tuition benefit is being utilized in your department and your college. Verification of a student's eligibility is the responsibility of the academic department, and a student's eligibility should not be interpreted as a guarantee. We do run into this at times of departments promising 10 semesters of tuition benefit eligibility and finding that they are not eligible for any traditional tuition benefit eligibility. That's a problem, and departments then end up having to use extended tuition benefit in those cases, which can be very costly when you're not planning on that. Tuition benefit funding. So the university provides participating colleges with a tuition benefit allocation that covers resident tuition and mandatory fees. Non-resident waivers are not charged to a college allocation. Allocations cover tuition benefit costs for students who are teaching assistants, either the GA or the GT or the TA code, and graduate assistance research focus, the GR, where the payroll is coming off an activity, and graduate fellows, so not RAs. Use of tuition benefit allocations are determined by each participating college's dean or the dean designee and distributed to departments as it aligns with the college's strategic goals. If you as a program or department are concerned over tuition benefit allocation for the upcoming year, this is an opportunity for you to engage in conversation with your dean's office over possible redistribution. And dean's offices are watching throughout the year, and they do redistribute throughout the year as necessary to rebalance the usage and allocated tuition benefit resources throughout the year. So if something does come up mid-year, have that conversation. Strategic growth requiring additional tuition benefit support for TA, GT, GR, or GFs should be part of your college's annual budget request. So let's say that you have some expected growth coming up. You're trying to increase the number of master's students and PhDs, and you will be providing support for them in a research lab or teaching assistantship, or you have fellowship money to support the student. You just need that tuition benefit dollars. That sort of strategic growth needs to be done in concert with the dean's office, and the college should be including that if necessary in the annual budget request for an increased college tuition benefit allocation. Requests to me, Matthew, I need more. I can't just give you more tuition benefit allocation. This is something that you will need to talk internally with your college. Departments supporting students as research assistants, so RA, where the payroll is coming off of a research grant, off a project. The resident tuition and mandatory fees are charged to the college as F&A returned overhead. Department leadership should work with their deans and dean's offices to determine the strategic use of RAs in the program to ensure strategic use of that F&A. Students supported on ex-TBP will have resident tuition and mandatory fees charged to the funding source, a project for RAs or activities for all other classifications, and coordinators will provide the chart field or multiple chart fields at the time of student entry for ex-TBP. Removal of tuition benefits. A student's tuition benefit may be reduced or removed if the student receives a conditional benefit for the semester but withdrew from courses where their total enrollment, active enrollment, drops below 9 credits, receive less than the minimum required financial support for their level of benefit, or in any way did not meet the requirements or restrictions of graduate school policy or guidelines for tuition benefit, which includes the exceeding the 0.74 FTE, or their cumulative GPA falling below 3.0. It is the responsibility of the department's tuition benefit coordinator to first diagnose concerns using their tuition benefit report. Tuition benefit report will show a 0 in the tuition benefit column, and usually there's going to be an error code. After consulting their reports and utilizing the tuition benefit guidelines, coordinators should then elevate student issues to the graduate school tuition benefit at gradschool.utah.edu. Tuition benefit portal, so entry benefits, the portal will open 6 weeks prior to the first day of school. The portal will then remain open until the census date, which is a few days after the tuition deadline. It is the department's responsibility to have the students entered into the system in a timely manner. Retroactive benefits are not processed. This is very important here. We do give you between the 6 weeks prior and the about 3 weeks after, that's about 9 weeks to enter a student into tuition benefit. The earlier, the better, because that then allows the student to go in. They can approve their tuition benefit agreement. They will show up on your report, and you can then liaise within your department any additional requirements, including following up with students on enrollment, health insurance, etc. So please do not wait until the last minute to enter your students. It will provide a lot of ease and calm for your students the earlier it is processed. So the tuition benefit coordinator role. So we don't say that this must be the grad advisor or the director of grad studies or who this individual must be. Sometimes the coordinator role is done by the director of grad studies, the department chair in some cases, an accountant. We have some colleges where deans are involved with the tuition benefit coordinator role, and it could be split up between a number of people. In any way, it is the department's responsibility to make sure that the role is filled in one way or another. And the responsibilities include the timely entry of tuition benefit participating students into the portal, routinely running and reviewing coordinator reports, addressing tuition benefit department and student concerns, and liaising within the department to address pertinent tuition benefit concerns. So in some departments, it's going to be the graduate advisor who manages tuition benefit, but they don't manage the EPAF. So that individual will need to work with whoever is in charge with the employee records. Or it might be the accountant who's doing this, and they run the reports and they see low enrollment issues. They need to liaise then with the grad advisor to follow up on enrollment concerns or what have you. So the coordinator does just that. They coordinate within the department the tuition benefit concerns and needs. And the director of graduate studies role. So this is not in our guidelines, but this does come from the graduate school's guidance on the role of the director of graduate studies. Relating to tuition benefit, the director is responsible for the graduate admissions process, which includes ensuring tuition benefit and student support is administered appropriately, organizing student orientations and providing student funding updates, which includes going over tuition benefit or requesting that my office come and talk about tuition benefit with your students, resolve student tuition benefit issues, including processing and supporting student tuition benefit petitions, supporting the tuition benefit coordinator in their role, and ensuring that the tuition benefit process within your program or department is smooth, and communicating tuition benefit needs to the appropriate bodies. So this may be working with your department chair, working with your dean's office, what have you. Okay, petitions for exception to tuition benefit policy. Petitions may be submitted on behalf of a student by a department chair or the chair's designee, which in this case could be the dogs, it could be the tuition benefit coordinator. Never should a student submit a tuition benefit petition directly to us. The reason for this is with any petition, we will be requiring that the student funding form be filled out, which says if this is granted, we attest that we will provide the student with support. So if a student does petition directly to us and we grant it, that still means nothing because the department has to still provide the support. So that, among other reasons, petitions should always come from a coordinator, director of grad studies, or department chair. Exceptions are considered for personal emergencies such as illness or extenuating family circumstances. If COVID, for example, has made it difficult for students to complete their research in a reasonable amount of time and they need an extra semester or two, or similar situations. Petitions right now are done by email, submitted directly to us, tuitionbenefit@gradschool.utah.edu, or the portal for COVID petitions. However, in July, we will be rolling out a new process and portal for all petitions, including TA extensions and GPA exceptions, to be processed in one convenient location. To be eligible for a tuition benefit petition, a student must remain in good standing in their academic department. So tuition benefit extension is not meant to help students who are on probation in your department, give them extra time. Students must remain in good academic standing. The students must have formation of a committee, and that must be reflected in grad tracking, as well as program of study being entered and approved by the committee. Qualifying exams, where applicable, must be completed and entered into grad tracking, and completion of any other program milestones as required by the degree program to define good academic standing. And starting this fall, any petition for extension will be requiring a completion plan, which illustrates to us the roadmap from where we are at the time of petition to defense and manuscript completion. To validate we need 2 semesters or 3 semesters. We want to provide the student with the support that they need, and we don't want to go through a petition process at semester after semester after semester for the same student. So completion plans, which will be signed by the department and the student, will be required starting in July. If a tuition benefit extension is granted, the department is still responsible for providing minimum required support, assistantship and/or fellowship, and having the tuition benefit allocation, or FNA, to cover the resident tuition and mandatory fees. So tuition benefit extensions aren't freebies of we will just blanketly cover those waivers of tuition. That still falls under the regular process. Alternatives to a tuition benefit extension: if a student is an RA and their support is paid by research grant, extended tuition benefit is an option. Use of departmental funds such as reimbursed overhead, donor funds, or faculty startup to cover tuition directly, again, extended tuition benefit. If no other options are available, a student may register for minimum credit necessary to maintain continuous enrollment, such as 1 credit hour, and pay directly. However, with this option, we do want to caution if your student is utilizing federal loans, if they are utilizing the student health insurance plan, and or if they are international, they may be required to be enrolled in 3 or more credits. Okay, and now a few brief words on extended tuition benefits. Extended tuition benefit can and should be used when charges of tuition benefits can be charged directly to a research project. So if there's tuition budgeted on a grant, we should be utilizing that first before traditional tuition benefit. And that would then reserve the traditional tuition benefit eligibility for that student down the road when grant funding might not be available to cover those tuition benefits. Charge tuition benefit to institutional funds or activities. So this could be the use of faculty startup to build a lab when a professor is new, and extended tuition benefits for students who have utilized all their eligible semesters. So kind of as a last resort at the end. But as mentioned, if you have a grant that is funding your lab and it has tuition budgeted into that, you should be using that to support the students in your lab before utilizing traditional tuition benefit eligibility. Where able, not all grants can cover tuition benefit for whatever reason. Some important extended tuition benefit considerations. XTBP, like traditional tuition benefit, covers resident tuition and mandatory fees. The non-resident waiver is not charged to XTBP funding. So if we're charging your grant, we will only charge resident tuition and mandatory fees for that student. XTBP students' tuition is charged at appropriate resident rate. PhD students and dissertation credits will be billed at the appropriate reduced PhD dissertation credit rate. XTBP does not cover differentials, international student surcharge, or other miscellaneous fees outside of mandatory fees. And if you are choosing to cover those with a student on XTBP, similar to all other students, you would do that through scholarship administration. Similar to traditional TBP, students supported on XTBP must be enrolled full-time, minimum of 9 credits, and maintain a cumulative 3.0 GPA or higher, remain in good academic standing with the university and the department, that meritorious status, and their FTE cannot exceed 0.74. Choosing to cover tuition outside of extended tuition benefit, so paying directly through scholarship administration, may result in the loss of a non-resident waiver for applicable students and participation in the subsidized health insurance plan. When it comes to sponsored projects, utilizing a grant for extended tuition benefit, the grant or project must have tuition waivers budgeted into it. You can't just have a positive balance. Every semester we run into a situation of, well, the PI says that there's money on that grant. That's great, but must be a budgeted line item for tuition. Charges to grants and projects will follow the student's payroll efforts. So if a student has payroll 50% from a project and 50% from an activity, 50% of the tuition costs would be charged to that grant, not 100%. Okay, so we've gone through our guidelines. It is a bit of an onerous process here, but we made it to the end, and we do have some upcoming workshops that many of you have registered for already. If not, I encourage you to register where applicable. Next week, we will have tuition benefit coordinator operations. This is where we're going to go over the more finite details, the minutia of running tuition benefits. So entering a student, running reports, how to diagnose and interpret error codes, and other issues are more coordinator focused. On June 2nd, I will be discussing the intersection between tuition benefit and strategic enrollment management. In this workshop, I will cover various considerations during the admissions process, different questions to be asking as you are molding how you support your graduate students, as well as covering important documents. What needs to be in a contract? What needs to be in an offer letter? What needs to be in a fellowship offer letter as well? On June 6th, we will cover GSHIP, the Graduate Student Health Insurance Program, which is now starting this fall. Subsidization is at 100% rather than 80%. July 6th, we will have opened the portal for fall, and we will have a tuition benefit fall prep FAQ. We're hoping by this point to be able to—
This is Angie. Hi, hold on, let me just figure.
We hope to be able to unveil our new portal process for petitions at this point, as well as we're hoping to have our report updated with some new features to show you at this time. And then lastly, on August 2nd, I will be holding a workshop on graduate student funding opportunities, such as Stephenson Cannon, Mariner Eccles Fellowship, the UTA, the GRF, and other awards. This is not for students. I want to stress this. This is for faculty and staff who can then take what we discussed back to your faculty retreats and get the ball rolling in preparing for the upcoming application cycle. So you can champion your students through that process. So this is for you to come and learn more about the opportunities and how to support your students. With campus-wide opportunities like the Mariner Eccles Fellowship, the UTA, the GRF, I will be holding student-specific info sessions later in the fall. And any questions or concerns that you have, please feel free to reach out to me. Tuition benefit that should not be a period there. It's just tuition benefit at utah.edu for tuition benefit concerns. If you would like to schedule a meeting to talk about your individual concerns, email me directly, matthew.pluster@utah.edu. As we are planning for the fall semester, if you would like tuition benefit or fellowships to come and present at your new student orientation, please reach out to us. But the warning, that is on a first come, first serve basis. But we do have bandwidth based on past year's participation to do a few more orientations. And with that, we will stop the share and stop the recording and take your questions.